Going. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. Nice to see you all. I wanted to mention, I am recording these, and you can see the recordings if you go on our website it's under programs, and you'll see Introduction to Zen, and then there's another little menu that pops out, and you'll see the recording button there, and just hit that, and you can go back and review if you'd like. So last week I talked for quite a while about realization and actualization, and we talked about how realization, when you have a realization, it affects you in one way or another, and the Buddha, of course, had these realizations and taught about them for 40 some years, and he encouraged his students and all students of Buddhism since then that they should have these realizations, and if they do, then they can relieve their suffering. And accordingly, he in his teaching he came up with a system called the Eightfold Noble Path, which is a set of guidelines for students to work on and think about. And I'm not going to go into the Eightfold Path today. Probably next week I will, a little bit. But it's a very, very important part of the basic Buddhist teachings, and we'll get to that. But what I wanted to say about the Eightfold Noble Path is that this is what we call a skillful means, just like meditation or koan study or big mind. It's the Buddhist word for it is upaya, and upaya is a skillful means. It's a method. It's a way to help students and for students to help themselves to be on the path, get on the path, stay on the path, and have the realizations that will actualize themselves in their lives. And we've already talked a lot about meditation, but what I wanted to kind of talk about today, excuse me, I got a little frog in my throat today. In our school of Zen, Genpo Roshi's school of Zen, and there's many schools of Zen, and we're also part of another school, the Soto Zen, and which also in our particular lineage includes Rinzai Zen, which is another school of Zen. But at any rate, many of the different schools of Zen over the years and have developed their own methods and their own upayas, their own skillful means for helping their students. And Genpo Roshi developed Big Mind. And it's kind of it's really our core practice actually in our school. And it's a very powerful one. And many of you have done Big Mind with Roshi and some of our other teachers and have some familiarity with it. Some others may not, which is why I wanted to talk about it a little bit today. And I mentioned, I think last week, that Dogen Zenji said that the right way to study the way or study the Zen is with both the body and the mind. And I wanted to say that Big Mind as a practice does that. And because not only are we using our sort of intellectual side, our mind side to discover these things, we're also exploring the feelings in our bodies that come along with the various emotions and feelings and the results of our convictions and ideas and that kind of thing, and how it makes us feel, and also exploring the things that make us suffer and getting into those, and being able to use both our body and mind to kind of explore these things, what we call voices, different aspects or facets of ourselves that contribute to, our well-being or ill-being, if I could coin a phrase. So what I wanted to do today actually is do some big mind and talk about uh, how it works, and then do it and see it and feel it a little bit. And so if I would ask everyone to maybe take a minute or so, just, it won't take very long, because I want you to each think about, what is the thing that makes you suffer the most right now? What's the biggest trouble, the biggest sort of thing that, and it might be something new, it might be something that's very old, that has been with you a long time. So take a minute and think about that, and then we'll look for a hand to come up, and we'll work on that. And whenever anybody's ready to go, just raise your hand. I know sometimes it feels a little awkward because we don't want to expose ourselves, in front of everyone else, or bring up some problem that we think we shouldn't have, or things like that. But, we're all friends here, and we're all on the same path together. So, and it doesn't have to be a big thing either. It can be any kind of thing.
I can go. I can go, Bruce.
Okay, Camille,
Sure.
thank you.
Yeah, sure. So I would say that the biggest thing that causes me suffering uh, is projecting onto situations and people how I think something will happen, or how I think they feel about me. Um, and it's just completely my own nonsense. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So let's see if we can find a name for
Mm,
that voice. Is it kind of what would you call it?
mm, uh, it has the same flavor as judgment,
Judge.
but it
Okay.
but but I don't know if that's quite right.
Well, let's start there.
Okay, sure.
That sounds good.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm going to ask to speak to that voice,
Mm-hmm.
and you will speak from that voice, and Camille will be this other person we'll talk about in third person. Okay, so may I speak to judgment?
Yes. Mm.
Okay. What's the general feeling of this voice for you? What's when you're as judgment,
As judgment.
how
Mm. I like to make sure that things are correct. Um, yeah. I kind of have to keep a close watch on her, um, and everything around her. Um, yeah. Look out for danger. Um, yeah. That's yeah, it's judgment. Make sure things stay in the right place.
and as judgment, though, can you describe how you feel, kind of, more than what you do?
Mm-hmm, sure. Hmm. As judgment, yeah, I feel constricted. I
Okay.
feel like a constricted, yeah, like a constriction.
Around what?
Um, Around just the oh God, this is a this is kind of a tricky one.
Yeah, they're all tricky.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Um, yeah, maybe you can ask me another question. Yeah?
All
Mm-hmm.
right. Um, well, who do you work for?
Um, uh, I work for her.
Yeah, you work for Camille, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, yeah.
Um, and your job is to judge.
My job is to judge. That's right. Yeah.
How is that a tough job? Is it does it take a lot of hours?
Well, yeah, it's my job. It's what I know how to do. Yeah, it takes a long time. It's a continual process. Like it's kind of, yeah, it's something I'm always doing. Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine, I mean, I know for myself, and I think we can all relate to that voice.
Hmm.
Does she listen to you? Are you heard by her?
Mm, she does. Yeah, she does. She does listen to me. Yeah, she does listen to me actually.
Uh-huh.
Not all the time. Not all the time. And yeah, yeah.
And how does she react to your judgments?
Oh, she's horrified by my judgments. She likes to think that yeah, that I don't exist. That she's free of me. Yeah.
Really? Okay. So but she must appreciate you in some ways. Maybe not.
Mm, not really.
Okay.
Yeah, not really. Yeah.
Okay. Is that where the suffering comes in? Is if you and the boss aren't really seeing eye to eye?
Yes, of course. Yeah. Because I'm not re really I'm not really heard. I'm a bit misunderstood. Um,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, she only accepts what I say if she thinks it's discernment.
Ah,
Mm,
so discernment is kind of a cousin voice that she likes better
for sure. Yeah.
because seems more noble.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And she likes to feel noble.
Yeah.
But as judgment,
But
you'd probably judge that too, right?
totally, I judge everything. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, So do you listen to her?
Mm, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I mean, it sounds like she tries to make you wrong.
Yeah.
And how does that feel?
Yeah, it doesn't feel good. Yeah, it doesn't
Right.
feel good. I'm just trying to help. I'm just trying to do my job and to warn her about situations and people and things that could possibly go wrong and yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it probably doesn't feel good to not be appreciated for that.
No. Yeah.
What happens when that communication breaks down?
Mm. Um, well, we all kind of have a voice and we all need to be heard somehow. So I'm gonna come out. I'm gonna come out somehow. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, yeah. Um, Yeah. So you mean like a way that I would express myself? Like
Yeah.
if the communication's not there?
Yeah, if she's not listening to you and you're just still trying to do your job, do you find other ways, or I mean, or do you quit, or did she fire you? What happens?
I think she fired me as soon as she discovered spirituality.
Because spirituality, whatever that is, right,
Mhm.
not doesn't doesn't see judgment right, or
Right,
as,
right. Yeah,
and she probably thinks because you cause her some suffering that that just proves that point, right?
right.
Tough. Yeah, you're in a tough situation there.
Yeah.
Do you ever call any of the other voices for help as judgment?
Um, well, sure. Fear.
Oh,
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, if my point isn't getting across, then I know fear might be able to get to her. Yeah,
right. You just so when she's not hearing you, you raise the temperature or the volume level
exactly. Yeah,
using fear.
yeah.
How does that feel for her? Can you tell?
Oh, it's like an onslaught for her. Yeah, yeah. Like me judging and like fear like screaming at her from the back seat. Yeah, it's quite a lot. Yeah.
So when you call fear in to give you a hand in these situations, does it work?
Um,
Does she finally do what you want her to do?
yeah, she does sometimes. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay. But all of that that's going on, that's really that's the suffering, right?
That's all the suffering. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, is the suffering more about the thing you're judging or about the interaction between you as the judge and her?
Hmm. She's suffering because I'm judging. Um, and uh, yeah, she's kind of denying the judgment and um, yeah, and fear is coming in and yeah, and it just causes like a lot of overall anxiety about situations and
Yeah,
about people. Yeah.
yeah. Mostly
Yeah.
people or the situations that people put up for you, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like reliving things a thousand times before they even happen, you know? And also like around her work, because she's a photographer,
Mhm.
and it's like this anxiety of having to deal with a client and their expectations and worrying about what's going to happen in the situation of doing the photo shoot and having to be creative and having to take care of someone's image. It's very stressful. Yeah, very
Right.
stressful for her. Yeah,
Because as the judge, someone's judging Camille.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it's like seeing someone else. Hmm, right. That's her fear, is like seeing someone else's judge. Precisely, Bruce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Battle
Yeah.
of the judges.
Yeah,
It
totally.
gets so
Mm.
complicated, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Mm.
So, okay. Can I speak to another voice?
Of course. Hmm.
Yeah. I'd like to speak to discernment.
Okay. Yeah,
So
sure.
you've heard everything that's been going on in this conversation, right?
Hmm.
How would you, or what are your comments about this?
Uh, I think it's quite funny. I'm always there and I'm always choosing well.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I always know kind of the right path to take, and yeah, I've always served her really well, and other people trust me as well.
So what makes you different than judgment?
Hmm.
You're a different
Judgment Judgment doesn't have my taste or my style.
boy. Okay.
Um, Judgment doesn't have my heart. Yeah.
Okay. Oh,
Mm.
okay. Tell me about that a little bit more.
Hmm. So my main quality is kind of knowing how to apply like kindness and consideration in my choices. Yeah,
Okay.
that would be the thing that I think separates me from judgment.
So when she's got a client and judgment gets involved and it makes it stressful for Camille,
Mm.
how would you make that different for her?
Mm. I would tell her that she can apply that same um, um, I would tell her that I can apply that same kindness to her. Yeah, yeah. She's like always really worrying about others, and she should really kind of be kinder with herself. Yeah.
Would you allow her to somehow see the client differently?
I don't know why she is seeing the client differently. It kind of goes against everything that she believes, that she have all the teachings, all the everything that she studies, you know. What is the difference?
Yeah, and yet it keeps coming up, right?
Right. Yeah. Hmm. Thank you.
Yeah,
That's quite good. Yeah, that's quite good, Bruce. Thank you. Hmm.
you're welcome. You're welcome.
Hmm.
Anybody else? Yeah.
Yeah, Bruce, I would actually love some help with something that's quite new to me, and that is loss of the function of my body.
Mm,
So I have my left knee is now bone on bone, and
Hmm.
I've always been extremely strong in my body, really healthy. I've been really lucky in my life, and to get into a situation because of my age where I have to be very mindful of what I do. I mean, I can't walk up hills or a lot of steps and things like that. And it's I'm very aware of how my experience of life is going through the body, is it connected to my body,
sure.
and I would love to explore this. I haven't done this yet, so I would love it if you can help me with that, because that is causing suffering physically, but also in the way of I'm annoyed that I can't do as I could. I mean, I have to have a new knee at some stage, but that
Yeah.
I don't either. So I don't know if it's fear, if it's annoyance, or um, I feel that I've accepted it most of me has accepted it, but there is a part of me that's really pissed that this body is in the way now of me having and living the life that I really want when it comes to my physical ability.
Yeah.
Does that make
Well,
sense?
let me just say something first, that, pain is not necessarily suffering. The suffering is what you're thinking about the pain and how you're responding and reacting to it. So your suffering you also brought up, which is your anger about it, your frustration, your disappointment, maybe your yeah, those kinds of things, right? And that's really what the Buddha wants to work on, and because we're all going to have pain, we're all going to have, we're going to stub our toe, we're going to have our knee go bad, we're going to get hit in the head, that kind of physical pain, sometimes chronic, which can very much be extremely difficult to deal with, but it's the suffering around, like I say, your feelings about it. Okay, so what's the main feeling? Is it?
I'm pissed. I'm
Anger.
annoyed.
Yeah.
Anger. Yeah.
Those are all those, they all work in the same department, right?
Yeah.
And yet intellectually, you probably, that we're impermanent, right? And that it's inevitable that our knees are going to go bad, or our eyesight or hearing is going to go away, or we're going to have back pain, or, all those kinds of things. This is inevitable. And intellectually, we know this, but I think we don't see it as a realization, because a lot of times when we intellectually know something, we can say, okay, this is inevitable, but I don't like it and I'm going to fight it. And, or it's, and that there's the suffering, right? It's not really accepting it. Now, accepting it doesn't mean that you won't go get your knee operated on, right? It doesn't mean you're accepting that, you'll no longer be able to walk, but part of it is, is accepting the inevitability of death. I'll tell you about a personal experience of mine. We had a teacher at Kanzeon, and some of you may know him, Tenkei Roshi, and he was Tenkei Sensei then. Anton is his name. He's Dutch, and he has a great, wonderful Zen center in the Netherlands. And I just loved him, and I did Daison with him a number of times, and koans and things. And I came in one day to the Daison room, and where it's just you and the teacher talking. And I did my koan, and then he says, well, what else is going on with you, And I said, oh, and I just started whining and complaining about all kinds of things, and he sat patiently listening to me. And finally, when I was done, he said, Bruce, it's actually far worse than that. And I was shocked, I was like, how could it be worse than the way I just explained it, And he saw the look on my face, and he said, you're going to die. And I went, oh, right. And it hit me very strongly. Right. And so as we go through life, and, things start to fall apart, in our bodies and in our lives, and maybe our income and our housing and, our relationships, whatever. This is this natural decay, or sort of entropy, I think they call it sometimes, of life. And it's so obvious all around us, and yet we just don't want to accept it. And the interesting thing about acceptance, like I pointed out before, accepting it doesn't mean that you don't want to, that you're not going to do something about it, but you're just not going to get all worked up about it. You're just going to go, oh, okay, this happened, and so I'm going to take these steps. You know, my knee's going bad or my hip, you know, well, luckily modern medicine, we can repair those things, you know, but even that, it's a temporary fix, because then it's going to be something else and something else. And then finally, you know, it's like the Buddha said, you know, the problem of old age, sickness, and death. And so I would go back to what I was talking about with Camille a little bit, is like, I think if you have a strong judgment about it, and maybe that's not quite the right word, but you know, you'll tend to like have a lot of angst and anxiety and anger and all that, right, around it. But discernment is it's a very interesting word, because discernment is like, well, I'm seeing it and I know what I need to do about it, and I'm not going to add a whole lot of extra stuff around it, right, that causes me more suffering. And let me segue again just a bit, and then we'll do some big mind with you. One of the core principles in Buddhism is what we call the relative or the absolute. Okay, and some of these words are used interchangeably. Like for the relative, we also say the dualistic. Okay, and for the absolute, we say non-dual. And so if I say relative, dualistic, you know, you'll know I'm meaning the same thing. And if I say absolute and non-dual, so the world, the cosmos, is a non-dual entity. It exists as a non-dual entity. Dualism only comes from the minds of humans. Okay, like we name everything and then we judge everything according to how it suits us, and that's our dualistic thinking. That's the relative view. But the world itself is completely non-dual. Dualistic thinking and or this relative view we talk about is strictly the realm of the human mind. Trees don't come with a label on them that says tree or maple tree or whatever, right? And we call the earth earth, but the earth didn't come with a label on it either, right? But you know, humans have developed this amazing consciousness and ability to develop language, to communicate, and it's a wonderful thing. And in Buddhism, sometimes it's misunderstood a little bit that we want to throw that part away, that this is, you know, and it's been pointed out in Buddhist teachings, you know, that dualistic thinking is the source of all our problems. Well, it is, because the non-dual can't be the source of our problems, because we are, and the cosmos is completely non-dual, and look how wonderful it is, you know. And I shouldn't even say wonderful, look how it is, because wonderful is also a judgment, right? Okay, so it's so easy to slip into the dualistic thinking, and we're in it so much that we've come to think that that is the real world, but it's not. But it is also part of the world, and we know it's part of the world. We can see the karmic effects of dualistic thinking operating in the world, so we can't exclude it either. And this is why I think discernment, or sometimes they use the word differentiation, like the world, the cosmos is all one thing, and yet all these things are different in it. They're differentiated. We can differentiate between a car and a person, you know, and even much more subtle differentiations between, you know, all kinds of things, right? And a lot of Zen teaching is focused on getting people to drop the self, drop your dualistic thinking, and that's correct at the beginning, because we need to have this direct experience of the non-dual, of the absolute truth of the cosmos as it is, without judgment, without labels, without naming. We need to have that experience. This is what they call a kensho or satori kind of experience. And those experiences happen in our meditation. They happen with Big Mind. They happen with all sorts of different upayas or practices that we use. And sometimes it can happen just walking through the woods. You know, we can have all of a sudden a glimpse of the true nature of reality without all the labels, without any of the names, with it just as it is. There's a great koan where these two monks are walking along, and one monk says to the other, "What a beautiful day." And the other one says, "Yes, but what a pity to say so." Do you get that? It's like, why add your judgment on top of what is, right? Why do that? And yet, so they're making a certain point there, right, that I'm trying to make as well, that the reality of the world is non-dual, and all the dualistic stuff comes from in our own heads. And we all have completely different views. Even that, we don't all agree on the relative or dualistic views about anything, right? This is why we argue and fight and have wars and disagree, and and then we try to fix it all with laws and with social norms and all these kinds of things. And so if we're completely wrapped up in dualistic thinking that way, then we're going to suffer, right? And so this is why, and Buddha was right, this is where suffering comes from. But we also can't live without it. So what we try to do is mitigate that. But first, we need to see into the non-dual reality and just really get what that is. Get that everything is as it is. It's gone over millennia of time to be to this moment, and it's completely non-dual already. It's always already that way. And then we can kind of see, oh, wow, now I can look at the self. I can look at my dualistic thinking from that perspective and go, oh, I see why this is causing me a problem, because I'm judging, I'm naming, I'm valuing everything, I'm weighing every possible circumstance. I like milk chocolate better than dark chocolate, or I like this person, and then we make up things even on top of that. It gets horribly complicated. Like Camille was saying, her judge is judging her client about what she thinks the client is judging her about, right? And her client's doing the same thing. Her client's probably thinking, well, I don't really quite like this portrait that Camille has done, but I'm afraid to say anything because maybe Camille won't like me. And without even talking to each other, they're making up all these stories about the situation. And it just builds upon, right? And so this is what we call the world of samsara, of suffering, dukkha. There's a lot of different words for that. So this is something that, this is why we practice. This is why we meditate. And meditation gives us, a steady meditation practice gives us a certain spiritual power of be able to concentrate and have equanimity. And that helps to break through and have this actual experience of the non-dual and just see the world, see a day without thinking it's beautiful, or just drop the dualistic thinking. Not forever, because after we have that experience, then we have to go into training to bring the relative back in properly. So instead of harsh judgment, we realize we can just differentiate, and we can have discernment, and we can see that of course there's things we have to do. Of course we have to deal with life. Of course we have to have decisions and preferences. In one of our prayers, it says, the great way is not difficult. It just abhors preferences. It doesn't say there shouldn't be any preferences. It means that our preferences shouldn't drive us. Okay. So, Pia, let's talk about your knee. Because the knee is not really the issue, right?
No, I just realized that it's actually it's loss. That's
It's
really
loss.
what it's about, loss. That's
about
what I realized when I heard you talk. Yeah, it's about that, not wanting to lose.
Yeah. So let's speak to loss.
Wow, that's a good one. Okay. Speak to loss. Okay.
So tell me your name.
I'm lost.
What's the general feeling of this voice? What does this feel like in your body?
Oh, I can feel that I contract.
Yeah.
I'm quite slow. And I'm heavy.
Mhm.
I'm definitely, it's contraction. Yeah.
Yeah. All these things are contractions, actually. The entire dualistic world is nothing but contractions around ideas and notions and convictions and dualistic conflict. The knee is just the thing you're blaming.
Oh,
But
yeah.
the loss is the suffering, the feeling of loss. There's a certain dread in it too, isn't there?
Yeah, I feel really of this world. I really feel, very human.
Yeah.
Yeah. And heavy and quite sad as well.
Sadness,
Sadness, definitely.
grief.
Yeah, I'm heavy. Wow, I'm heavy. I'm really heavy. And I actually, I want things to be different.
Well, Pia does for sure. But as
Mm.
loss, what's her job?
To let go.
Maybe. What else?
As loss, what my job is. What comes to mind is just to let go and just accept to let go. The things change. It's to embrace change.
Yeah. And I think in a way that's your job. Your job is to feel loss for Pia so strongly.
Yeah. Yeah, I certainly see that. Because there's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with loss.
No,
It's part of life.
yeah. But if Pia didn't feel you, where would she be?
Oh, she wouldn't be human.
Right.
She wouldn't have this experience of this world of duality. She can learn so much from loss, from me.
Yeah.
So much. Actually, I think I'm a real gift for her. I don't think
so.
she realized that. But I am.
Because you're a kind of awareness that she has, right?
Yeah. I'm really glad talking to you.
Does she listen to you?
No, she complains about me. And yet I'd actually think I could be a great teacher for her. a real great teacher. Well, I am a great teacher for her.
Yeah.
I think she sees that now.
Because of you, she questions the whole nature of life and the world.
Oh, yeah. I'm really important.
You're very important.
Wow. I see that. I see that now. And yet she has been really scared of loss, not just with her health, but with loss of anything she wants, anything, and it's relationships, it's money, it's the world, it's everything in this world. Because there's always loss in some way. Nothing stays the same. Nothing. Always changing. Always.
Right. There's actually loss in every way.
Absolutely.
This is why, impermanence is one of the core realizations in Buddhism, is to really penetrate that, to really feel it, to really see it 100%. To let go into impermanence, let go with both hands.
Yeah, because there's no point. There's no point in holding on.
No.
Because I am lost. There is loss every second. Loss of something.
Right. And
Wow.
and this is the kind of absolute and non-dual view. But if we're going to take and include the dualistic, yeah, you should go get your knee fixed.
Yeah, it's not really the problem.
Yeah, it's not a problem. It's just a procedure.
No. Something that has to be done. Actually, it's not me that has a problem with it. I think it's her.
No, you don't have a problem. You're doing your job. She's the one with the problem. She's the one that's suffering.
Yeah, I'm not.
So, she's suffering because what does she think what does Pia think things should be like? No loss, right?
Yeah, no loss. It just have to stay the same, which is really dumb because you can't. But
it's almost kind of an entitled feeling, right? She feels entitled.
Oh, very arrogant, very arrogant,
very selfish and arrogant.
Very, very, and yeah, that is really, really actually, that's comical. She has a picture of a donkey on her side table, on her night table, to remind herself that she is a dumbass at times. And that really is a dumbass thing, to think that life can't change. And of course, there's loss.
Of course. Of course.
I am such a great teacher for her. If she really embraced me and really, could live with me with ease and non-attachment, it will be a totally different. She'll just get that knee fixed.
Yeah. And I would say that this is true of all these voices. A voice, like judgment, like Camille and I were talking about. We went to another word, discernment, which felt a little better, but really judgment is fine. It's, is it an immature judgment or is it a mature judgment? And one of these sort of actualization things that happens with big mind is these voices do go from immature to mature. Okay. A reasoned adult mature judgment is discernment, right? And there's so many, different names and voices for things, but I think you get what I'm saying. And so just like with loss, an immature loss is one that's just, but a mature loss leads you to a realization of a true realization and seeing of impermanence, and an understanding that this is a teacher, and this is a wonderful part of life. Okay.
Yeah.
And when these voices do that, it also, like you say, you've embraced it. I'm not pushing away loss anymore. I've embraced it. I'm not going to push away judgment anymore. I'm going to embrace it and let it grow and be mature and lead me to higher levels of insight around the fact that I need to be able to differentiate and I need to be able to discern. But do I need to get wrapped up in a whirlpool of self-criticism about, how I think other people are thinking of me, thinking of them, of thinking of me, of thinking of, right? So this is why I think Big Mind is just a remarkable tool, an empire for working through, like Roshi says, untying knots, because these are the knots, these are the barriers that are going to keep us in a way from having insight, but they're also paths, direct routes to insight. And they do involve both the body and the mind, because we have to feel these things, like we feel loss, we feel the pain of judgment or self-criticism. And we also intellectually can talk through it and understand. So it's study of the way with body and mind. Okay. Now, I think meditation is a very important component of this, because those quiet times, those very, very quiet, still times, allow some of these things to bubble up a little bit so we can actually recognize them a little better. So we can actually, because sometimes it's just kind of a uncomfortable or unsatisfactory or even painful kind of feeling. But once we bring it up and examine it and maybe sort of interview it, like we do with Big Mind, we kind of interview the voice, then it takes on status as kind of an object. Like it's not me, it's just an object that I'm feeling. It's a thing that I'm going through. And when you separate that way, that object, that's in a way also in separating, you can then embrace it because you understand it better. And you can let it work and you can let it grow and like that.
It's great. It's really, really great. I learned a lot. And
Thank
also
you.
how different Big Mind is from voice dialogue. Very different. It's like voice dialogue is the dualistic, the personality and the ego, where Big Mind is a missing link for me anyway. So thank you.
Genpo Roshi was brilliant in seeing that this sort of technique can be used to explore these non-dual or absolute voices or teachings or realities, really.
Yeah, it's profound, really profound.
Yeah, I'm so glad I met him.
Me too. Me too. Yeah, it's very good.
Anybody else have just a question? I don't have time to do any more Big Mind today, but any questions at all about anything? Okay. Paul? And then Maria.
Bruce, yeah, complicated question, or maybe not complicated, but how do you let go? How do you shed? So it's also with Big Mind. So you go with the voice and you go into the physical sensations. Is it then the insight that makes it let go, or is it the massaging like Kenjin was saying last time, or how do you, well, How do you
Well,
shed, or how do you let go?
yeah,
Simple question, but
for me, and this is my interpretation of mindfulness or awareness,
Yeah.
is when I'm feeling something, if I'm feeling uncomfortable or I'm feeling a little angry or I'm feeling frustrated, anything, right? If I can turn my attention to that thing and pull it out and look at it and sort of make it an object rather than making it me.
Yeah.
There's a great, my wife, and I were talking, she did some classes too, but we are not our thoughts. Okay. When we self-identify ourselves, well, I'm this and I'm that. And, we talked I think last week or the week before about, when I spoke to the self, people basically always talk about their roles.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a dad, or I'm a brother, and I'm a friend, and I'm a photographer, or I'm a doctor, or whatever. And, these are our roles. This is not our fundamental nature. Okay. And in Zen, we're trying to get down to the fundamental nature. And another way I look at it is like, if you look at the cosmos, everybody thinks the cosmos is all the stuff that's floating around in it, all the stars and the planets and asteroids, and that's it. But I always think, well, no, those are the things, the empty space that's holding all that. Where did that come from? Okay. And so I look at myself as like, I'm the empty space, and all these thoughts and feelings and things that are going on are more like the planets and the stars and all that.
that's helpful.
Right. And so, but sometimes I think, well, we can, if we start to identify as a particular planet or something, I know this is a little crazy sounding, but, I have this self-identity that I have created, that's actually just a collection of objects and events and feelings and things. So if one of those is a problem for me, if my anger or my greed or my ignorance or whatever is a problem for me, if I can bring enough awareness to it that I can pull it out and realize that this isn't actually an object in this empty space that's actually the true me, then I can then embrace that as part of my personal cosmos, but not attached to it so much that it's driving me. And in that process of objectifying it, then I allow it to be what it is. I can hear it. It can hear me. I'm not. Do you get what I'm saying?
I love your word objectifying. So it's not me, it's I can feel it, I can sense it,
But who's the one that's sensing it? Who's the one that's feeling it? See what I'm saying? So there's
the empty space. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a subject object dynamic that goes on that is true, and the subject is the true thing, and the objects are just the objects of impermanence that are floating around and changing all the time.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
That helps.
Maria, I think, was next, and then Ruth. And I can go as long as you want. I love doing it.
Okay, do you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. I wanted to thank you for sharing with us your insights, because it's really very interesting. And now I see how everything is connected. These voices, how they are connected. Because I thought my suffering now is something special, because I got an ear infection, and I'm suffering, I do hope, a temporary hearing loss at the one side, and everything is different now. I hear different, and I experienced the world different.
Right.
But now I see that it has to do with loss, yeah,
Mhm.
and it has to do with listening and judgment as well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Ruth, did you have something?
Oh, not really. I mean, I didn't. I mean, I'm sitting here and just thinking about my suffering and trying to whittle it down. I know we're not going to do any big mind, but I was thinking about disappointment, and it's tied in with what everybody was talking about. For me, it's tied into expectations, leads to
Yeah.
bitterness. I mean, I intellectually know. I mean, I know a lot about it. And I'm sitting here and like, you know, the tears are running down my face, and I all of a sudden just had this, like I was able to let go of the notion that I'm disappointed or that I'm sad. Not let go of it completely, but just like they say, tears have different chemical construction depending on whether they're tears of joy or tears of sadness. And
Really?
yeah, and I'm maybe just starting to question that. So that's where I am right now. Or, I mean, tears are not neutral, but maybe they don't. Maybe I don't need to understand them all the time. I don't know. That's where I'm at.
I've certainly had a lot of tears of my own in this practice. And they've been different. They've been joyful sometimes, and they've been full of grief and loss sometimes. You know, we can grieve over things that we actually have gotten rid of, that we wanted to get rid of, but still kind of, you know, it was something that was close to us for our lives that we finally dropped. And it was a relief to drop it, but you can still grieve it at the same time. It gets very kind of bittersweet, and I understand.
It's tied into a real sense of waste. I mean, again, that's getting into judgment, but it's just like, do we ever get, it's like for me, the process of my life is to get me somewhere. And I feel like the moment of my death will be when I finally learn how to live. And it's no, that sounds too precious. What I'm saying is we never really get there. And, or maybe we're there. I mean, I think you're saying Buddhism says we're there. But it's kind of like spending my whole life getting to the starting point. And that's a terrible way to feel about existence.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's, you know, that resonates with me. I mean, it's, I think I said at the beginning of our classes, you know, that the Buddha said, you're already a Buddha, you just don't realize it. And that relates to what I said about the entire cosmos exists as a non-dual thing. And we just add the dualistic on top of it, like a layer of frosting or something worse. And, you know, and with dualistic thinking is, you know, this is it's all about expectations and dreams and you know, disappointments over the expectations, and what's a reasonable expectation and what isn't. And you know, there's a million variations. Like I say, we're swimming in this kind of sea of samsaric or dualistic thinking, and yet we still have to deal with life. You know, we still have to do it. But yeah, we don't need to get anywhere because we're already there, and yet we got to do something, right? So it's this is a great thing to just meditate on, that paradox that we're born into.
I I don't know if I've ever said this here. I was watching, and this is a good glimpse into Ruth. I was watching a TV program on death some years ago, and there was a young woman who was in her bed and she was dying, and she was taking her, whatever her pain medications, it was mushed into applesauce because that was all she could take it in. And she was lying in her bed, and she was holding like a stuffed animal or something. And I mean, I still use my blanket, my baby blanket, so I don't have a problem with that. But there was part of me that looked at her and said, "Oh, can you do that? Oh, are you allowed to hold a stuffed animal when you're dying?" And it was kind of like, I'm going to get to my deathbed, I'm going to still be looking over my fucking shoulder. Like, is it okay to do it this way? It's just, Jesus. Do you know what
Yes, I guess, just stop thinking whether anything's okay or not.
Because it's not, right?
Well, it is, or it is. I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's okay or not. You just do you, and just do you and be free in that. Just,
I think,
this thing about, you've heard the phrase, final resting place, right? Which is, usually the grave, right? We put him in his final resting place, and there isn't a final resting place. And yet, and people often ask in Zen classes, well, what's the ultimate truth, or what's the ultimate goal, or what, because we've all, because life is fucking hard, excuse me, and we just want to, we want to get a place where we can finally rest. And there just isn't one. And so we have to just drop that whole idea and just go, just be in the moment, be in the moment, be in the moment, be in the moment. And whatever it is, just be it and do you. And that's really all we can do.
okay. I don't want to be seen as this is my ego, myself. I don't want to be seen as someone in pain,
Yeah.
I want to be the sufferer, because that's tedious.
Well, you're just causing your own suffering by thinking that you don't want to be seen as something, right?
Of course.
I mean, I don't know what people think of me. I've had enemies over the years. I've had friends. I've had, people, and nobody really knows you. Any of us, really. I can't get inside your head and really know you, but we can connect and we can relate. And also through some of these insights, we can have, this is where compassion arises, with Buddhism, is you realize that, wow, if I'm suffering, so is everybody else. Now I'm going to cry.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Madhushri, did you have something before I break down entirely?
Yeah, I really appreciate your honesty, Ruth, and you too, Bruce, and everybody else. Yeah, I'm a bit teary as well, but I can't find the words right now. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let me just say that I really appreciate you all, and I'm really glad you're here, and I'll see you next week. Okay.
Stay well, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.